If you clicked on this video, then I don't need to introduce you to Roblox at all, as it's been around for nearly 2 decades. However, in the past few years, it has made its way to become the most popular video game platform in the world, where you can practically do anything you want. Hang out with your friends, star in fashion contests, trade items, grow a garden, go prospecting for gems, commit a mass shooting, threaten to commit acts of terrorism in real life, publish borderline sex games that are unmoderated, and sometimes even officially promoted, groom minors within those games, get cease and desisted by the company itself for getting pedophiles arrested. You can practically do anything. Now, when you have a platform that's as big as Roblox's, you're bound to get a few bad apples in there. And when I mean bad apples, I'm talking about neurodivergent 14-year-olds with unrestricted internet access. What, did you think I was talking about the countless number of pedophiles on the website? Nope. When it comes to their meeting grounds, they all flock to one single game on the platform. Regret-evader. Forsaken! If you are an avid player of Roblox but somehow have never heard of this game before, let me give a brief summary of what it's all about. Forsaken is an asymmetrical horror game, I'm using that term very lightly, that revolves around the idea of one person is a hunter and has to kill all of the other players. It's mostly compared to games like Dead by Daylight and Friday the 13th the game. God rest its soul. Now, while I can't exactly confirm the accuracy of these claims since I've never played Dead by Daylight and Friday the 13th the game got blasted, what I can confirm is that while this game may seem pretty simple on the outside, internally it is a fucking war zone. Minus Art the Clown being soccer kicked by Michael Myers to death. There is a lot I would like to discuss regarding this single Roblox game, from its gameplay to bugs, praises to problems, and most importantly, the devs and its player base. I want to cover everything I like and dislike about this game, the good, the bad, and the fandom. Hey, I think I know what to title this video. Before I get into what I like about this game, I should probably explain how it works to those who are unaware of its gameplay. As I mentioned before, Forsaken is an asymmetrical killer versus survivor style game that has an old Roblox aesthetic, where one person is the aforementioned killer and the other up to 8 players are survivors. Their sole task for the entire game is to just survive for 4 minutes. Survivors can decrease the timer faster by doing generators around the map, and the killer can increase time by killing the survivors. I'll start off talking about survivor gameplay first, since it's who you're going to be playing as the most. The gameplay loop of Survivor is actually pretty solid, but it depends on who you're playing as, which I should add that there is an in-game currency that is earnable through doing just tasks in the game, which can be used to buy these characters and other things like emotes, which are usually references to other media and are animated pretty well. Because this game's theme is old Roblox, a lot of playable survivors and killers are actually based on real people or references to certain media, with the rest just being original characters. Elliot is based on the Pizza Boy mascot of the same name from Work at a Pizza Place, Noob is just the Noob, Guest 1337 is directly taken from Oblivious HD's movie The Last Guest, Builderman is Roblox's unofficial mascot and one of David Bazuki's pseudonyms, 007N7 is the main account of Cool Kid, a notorious exploiter back in 2013 to 2016 who was also a killer in the game. Jeletsky is based off of the first ever employee of Roblox who goes by the same name and has actually played the game himself, which is pretty cool. And Dusakar is based off of Matt Dusek, the second ever employee of Roblox who is named off of his hat of the same name. Probably get the point by now. A lot of these survivors have some backstory to them, but are they actually fun to play? Depending on the map, who you play, sometimes your luck, and whether you're going against a toddler or a 30,000 elo killer, matches will either feel like you're frolicking in a flower field or having psychological torture methods that the CIA developed during MKUltra used on you. As I said before, the goal of the game for survivors is to simply survive. Around the map are a total of 5 generators, which to progress through these generators, you must play 4 rounds of flow free from your phone. A total of 3 people can be on a generator at once, which speeds up progression immensely, and when completing a stage, it removes 4 seconds from the clock and gives you 1 malice, which is the temporary currency of the game. Having the most malice in the server means you'll become the killer next round. This style of generator progression is unironically really fun and a lot more engaging than something like Dead by Daylight's skill check, which is literally just a pop to lock arcade machine you find at Dave & Buster's. It also feels a lot more rewarding when you complete a stage with how much more time consuming it is, and because completing a stage gives you malice, it actually motivates players who want to play as killer to, you know, play the game. This is the core loop of Forsaken that every player goes through no matter what character they choose to play. There are also 2 items you can find around the map, which is a medkit and a Bloxy Cola. The medkit is self-explanatory, and Bloxy Cola just gives you 10 seconds of boosted speed once you finish drinking it. If you also happen to be the last survivor alive, the game goes into last man standing mode, where no matter how much time is left, it sets the clock to around 1 minute and 10 seconds, and you now have to survive against the killer one-on-one, which is accompanied by some unique music. This is a really nice change in gameplay, as it would suck for both the killer and survivor survivor if it kept the same amount of time left. If there's not a lot of time left, it would be an easy win for the survivor, and if there's too much time left, then it's an easy win for the killer. Speaking of survivors, there are like 10 different characters, and I don't exactly feel like turning this video into something like, what's going on YouTube? Today we are going to be ranking every single survivor in Forsaken on a tier list from worst to best. Let's try to go for 3 likes. I'm just going to be talking about the 2 survivors I enjoyed playing the most, Chance and 2 Times. Both of these characters are classified as sentinels according to the Forsaken wiki, which, yeah, big shocker, a game this large has a wiki, which basically means they're supposed to defend the other survivors by stunning the killer. 2 Times is a close ranged attacker whose main gimmick is that they have 2 lives. However, you gotta earn the second life yourself by successfully landing knife hits, backstab or not. However, landing a backstab is much more helpful to you and your team as it stuns a killer for around 4 seconds, heals more HP, and also fills up your second life meter faster, with a normal stab filling the meter around a third of the way and a backstab filling it over half, meaning you could get your second life with just 2 stabs. Speaking of that second life though, to get it, you first need to place your spawn point of where you will spawn if you were to die, and when you die with a second life, you will only have half the HP you originally had, which was already low to begin with. I really do like 2 Times gameplay as they are a pretty strategic character to play and require to actually have some sort of brain function. Hitting a successful backstab feels really nice, and the rewards you get for it are super helpful but not overpowered. Hey, why the fuck does your 2 Time look like that? Before I go on to talk about Chance, let's talk skins. Now, normally when it comes to skins in video games, it's 3 different situations. They're either pretty nice ways to decorate your items for free and something to progress towards if you choose to, the most intrusive aspect of the game where you can't go 2 seconds without seeing and being pressured to buy them, or a gateway into a crippling gambling addiction. Luckily for Forsaken, it's case 1. You can obtain skins by doing something special for an achievement or just buying them for in-game currency, and some of them are honestly really nice to have and worth the grind. Notice how I said some. These skins can be as simple as a slightly altered design or can entirely change every aspect of the character. For example, when I use the 1x killer, I run a skin called Diva, which is a reference to a Hatsune Miku themed horror series called Project Diva Deep Blue, which changes the intro cutscene, win cutscene, chase music, one of the swords into a mic stand, and the minion models. This isn't everything that can be changed about a skin, but it is most of it and really showcases how much effort is put into skins, which is really nice as it makes working toward buying them pretty worth it in the end. Alright, that's enough glazing the cosmetics, let me actually talk about Chance. Playing this motherfucker will either be the best time of your life or misery and suffering in blocky form. Chance's entire gimmick is that you need to gamble for everything. The HP you spawn with will be randomized from 70 to 90, and all of his abilities require you to land successful 50-50s. His main move is the coin flip, which can be spammed. If you land on heads, you gain a charge which can be used on his other abilities. If you land on tails, you get a weakness effect which can stack infinitely, meaning you receive 20% more damage per stack, but the effect goes away after 15 seconds. However, the stack will not disappear. You can gain up to a max of 3 charges which you can spend on the following abilities. Shoot, which will fire a flintlock but has a chance to fail depending on how many charges you have. If you have 1 charge, it's a 50% chance the gun will fire, 25% chance it doesn't even shoot, and 25% chance it explodes on you, which can deal damage and even kill you if you're low enough.
Graveyard.
I killed oh my god! They're going all the way to a 90% chance of firing the gun if you got 3 charges and 5% for the other 2. Reroll will randomly generate the amount of max HP you have ranging from 55 to 130, and I'm not exactly sure if having more charges gives you better luck or not, because I have gone really dog shit HP value using 3 charges. Six, seven. Also, this ability doesn't heal your HP, it just increases or decreases the amount you have left. Chance's last ability is Hat Fix, which can only be used if you have all 3 charges, which gets rid of all your weakness stacks and fixes your gun if it exploded on you. This ability is really fucking annoying for reasons I'll get into later. When you hit a shot on the killer, it stuns him for around 1 to 4 seconds depending on how close you are to him, but it also slows you down as well for a bit, which makes it a bit hard to get away. Chance is probably my favorite character gameplay wise when it comes to just fucking around and having fun, especially as someone who loves playing first-person shooters. Hitting wallbang clips and 360s on killers is always really fun to do, and it feels super satisfying, even if there are occasions where my piece blows up on me. No! That's essentially all I have to talk about when it comes to those 2 survivors that are positive. So let me move on to the audio of the game. The audio design for Forsaken is nothing special. The sound effects are alright, the voice acting is pretty good when it's present. However, something that Forsaken excels in astonishingly well is its original music. This is something that seems to be very subtle at first, and until you actually start focusing on it. Most of the music from this game comes from two scenarios: being chased, being near the killer, or being the last man standing. Every single chase theme in the game will have 4 different phases depending on how close or far away you are from the killer, which will loop until it either changes or goes away. And there are a lot of these, some of which will only activate under very specific circumstances. For example, if you use the Diva skin I was talking about earlier and someone's using the Teto skin for 2 time and they happen to be the last one standing, this track plays. What the fuck do you mean this is a song for a Roblox game and will almost never play 99% of the time? There is so much effort here, and hearing some of these songs for the first time in game is just something that will make you pause for a second and just be dumbfounded for a bit, which is what happened to me when I first heard Pretty Princess's Chase theme, which is a skin for a cool kid and sounds something like this. What are the devs feeding these kids? They're cooking this shit up in FL Studio. This sounds like something that would play during a rave. There are so many good songs in this game, but the final one I would like to highlight is the Last Man Standing song between the Hacklord 1X skin and Heartbroken Chedletsky skin, which genuinely just straight up sounds like an Attack on Titan opening. I think I got my point across by now. The original soundtrack for this game is awesome and definitely deserves the praise it gets from players of the game. At least some of the songs do. Anyways, now that I've talked about everything Survivor related, let's talk about the killer gameplay. Hey, wait, why are we transitioning? This section is going to be talked about essentially everything I dislike about not just the game itself, but also some other problems I have with the developers themselves and how they run things. But keep this very important note in mind, this does not mean I hate them or anything like that. I bet they're lovely people, but that doesn't mean I won't criticize them. Now, despite me talking about killer gameplay in this section, I don't hate playing killer at all. In fact, a lot of the time it is pretty fun, but your first 20 or so matches are going to be fucking miserable, and there are some mechanics that really do drag the experience down. For example, let's talk about maps. When playing as Survivor, none of the maps play horribly in my opinion. I think they all flow pretty well, even if some of them look weird. Like seriously, what the fuck is this map even supposed to be a reference to? However, playing as killer for some maps is genuinely awful, but this is most apparent when you're playing as 1X. 1X has a total of 4 abilities besides their main melee attack. 2 of them don't do any damage, unless the survivors are fucking stupid and somehow can't avoid a slow NPC. And the other 2 are ranged attacks. Now the thing about these ranged attacks is that they only go on one plane. And what I mean by that is if you're about to use one of these range attacks and the person you're targeting just so happens to be next to a ramp or any elevated surface, they can just dodge the attack by simply going up the fucking ramp and you can't do anything about it. Like, why is this a thing? Why can't you just add aiming like any normal game? This is a problem for Chance's gun too, and oh boy, I'll talk about some gripes I have with Chance later. The thing that pisses me off the most about this mechanic is the fact that this isn't like some super hard thing to change either, because there's already 3-dimensional aiming for Cool Kid with his ability Corrupt Nature, which literally does more damage than 1X's Entanglement ability. If this was done for balancing mechanics too, I just don't get that either, because it genuinely makes playing this character so much more frustrating for no reason, because there are plenty of other ways you could nerf this ability while also adding 3D aiming like longer cooldowns or slower projectile speeds, which these two abilities aren't even hit scan, by the way. You still need to be able to predict where the survivor is gonna go, and if you're going against someone who's got any experience in video games, they will most likely dodge it. Another thing I've noticed with this game is that the developers will just make unnecessary balancing changes to things that were perfectly fine while not touching things that actually need changing. And sometimes when they do change things, it's just worse for some fucking reason. For example, as I'm writing this, when Forsaken just had its newest update, Flash a rework, which is sort of generous calling it a rework because all they did was just change up Jason's design and name so they didn't get sued to death by Warner Bros. But that's beside my point. Not only did the game take around 7 to 8 hours after the update to go public again, although I don't know if this was their fault or Roblox's, but they changed the already horrible hitboxes, which, and I quote, should feel better to play with. However, not only do these hitboxes feel the exact same, in quite a few cases, it actually feels a lot worse for both the killer and survivors. And if you don't believe me, here's an example of what I'm talking about. If you look at this video I got of me running, you will notice the server-sided hitbox is lagging behind me so much to the point I am essentially a full person closer to the killer than I should be. While I don't know what the ping was in this clip, I'm assuming it was on the higher end of around 70 to 100. Here is a different clip of me playing on a 30 to 50 ping server, and it's still prevalent, but not to the extent it was in that last clip. This is how I'm getting clips of me backstabbing when I shouldn't be, and me being backstabbed when I shouldn't be. Like, both of these clips should not be possible. I do get that this is partially not the developer's fault because after all, it is Roblox's servers that are held together using potatoes, wires, and thoughts and prayers. But if you're gonna say that you revamped the hitboxes to feel better, I should not be having experiences like this. Besides projectile aiming on some maps and horrible hitboxes, another thing that brings down the experience for all killers is what I call stacking. And yes, I just took that term from Warzone. Stop! Don't kill me! There are two types of stacking, but I'll explain normal stacking first. Now, this isn't exactly anything the developers can prevent or fix from happening, but it is still notable, and it's when a group of people, usually friends, are all huddled up in one group and protect each other like it's their actual lives on the line. They don't do generators, all they do is just stand around together. Playing in lobbies like these are genuinely the most miserable thing you will come across when playing killer, because not only is it just boring for them to do absolutely nothing until you go attack one of them, but when you do, they all start to trail behind you and start taking hits for that person so you can't get any actual damage in, and the round ends with you doing 25% damage to each person. Second kind of stacking in game, which is much more unbearable, is what I call class stacking, and that's when half or more of the server is playing one specific character, which can occur intentionally or just from bad luck. It doesn't matter what character this is besides maybe noob, but the worst kind of class stacking is with Builderman or Taff, because these motherfuckers got me looking around for traps like I'm deployed in Vietnam. Another thing I would like to mention when it comes to every single killer, except for one, is how weirdly slow everyone feels. This combined with the stamina management for killer genuinely makes me feel like I'm working a 9 to 5 just for a single kill, and I think a slight buff to run and walk speed or faster stamina regen would make it so much easier to play killer, all the while not making it too easy. Speaking of ease of use for killers, I don't think it's stated how horribly this game teaches you how to play killer. Like I mentioned before, your first 20 or so killer matches are going to feel awful, especially on Jason since he is the starting killer. I think Jason is a really fun killer, but a horrible starter because of how specifically you gotta play and be experienced with the game, and learning how to use his abilities is basically non-existent since you gotta do it in game and you're not exactly gonna be able to learn how to use them since all you're gonna be doing is failing. This probably would be fixed if there is some sort of tutorial for not just Jason, but every single killer and survivor that sort of guides you through not only how to play, but also use the abilities of that specific killer or survivor using practice scenarios. It would make the game a lot more beginner friendly and just an amazing quality of life change, because let's be honest here, nobody wants to read all that shit instead of just playing actual scenarios that would be infinitely more helpful. That's everything I've got for killer criticism. It's pretty fun to play, but it does have its downside that I do think can be fixed. Now let's talk about the one killer that I don't think has any redeeming qualities. Noli is a stupid, worthless, chopped loser, and anyone who plays this motherfucker should die.
Come and hold my hand, so we can frolic in a beautiful flower field together.
Not only was his killer announced in December of 2024, promised to come out in March 2025, but was delayed all the way to July 11th, he is also just such a fucking headache to play against. Going a bit further into how it feels to play against Noli, his entire gimmick is that he imposes hallucinations on survivors, which messes up the flow of the gameplay. This comes in forms such as fake generators around the map that don't actually decrease time, clones that deal damage which wears off, and fake items like Elliot's Pizza and Builderman's health dispenser that heal fake HP. Having to keep track of every single potential fake out for a single character is just not fun at all, especially since there are so many things to look out for. Like, this is the list of potential signs just for fake generators alone. I am not trying to keep track of all that shit. Every single one of this dude's abilities is the most annoying fucking thing to play against and not fun in the slightest. Void Rush Rush, which is Noli's most defining ability, is quite literally just Cool Kid's walk speed override, both an extra step, but more damage, and for some fucking reason, better movement controls, which by the way, this motherfucker has the ability to teleport to any generator he wants, and also for some fucking reason, you can sprint during this already fast ability to go even faster, when he only has 0.5 less sprint speed than Cool Kid. And if you just so happen to get away from Noli and avoid his Void Rush ability, he can just use his Nova ability, which has 3D aiming by the way, and upon hit, it brings you to the center of it, which slows you down immensely and does 15 damage, and for some reason, the radius of this explosion is bigger if you miss and hit a wall. Everything about this character is just so goddamn annoying, and I refuse to play him and impose the same suffering on random 10-year-olds in my lobbies. Not even this motherfucker's chase theme is good. Even before Noli's release all the way back in February, his chase theme was revealed, which was pretty decent. I mean, it wasn't the best one in the game, but for a default chase theme, it was probably the second best in the game besides Cool Kid's. But out of fucking nowhere, a day before release, it was revealed that his chase theme was scrapped for what we have now. Now, I know that everybody has different music tastes. Hell, there's probably some music I love that you probably think sounds like garbage, but this genuinely sounds like the EAS sound that would play on TV that would scare the shit out of me as a kid if it was played through a World War II trench phone. This problem is obviously solved through just buying a skin for the character and getting a different chase theme, like the You Are an Idiot skin, which actually sounds pretty good. But just to showcase how many people hate this chase theme, there's quite literally a setting in the game called Sensitive Music Mode, which replaces Noli's shitty chase theme with Jason's, and that is the fucking funniest thing ever. As I'm writing this part of the script on September 2nd, they actually did just happen to make some tweaks to Noli. So, what did we get? Some nerfs? Making the character more skillful to play against? And nope, they just made his base attack faster and Nova have an even bigger hit radius. What the fuck are you guys doing? This stupid fucking character took 6 months to be released, went through 3 iterations, had its perfectly fine chase theme butchered into sounding like a blender with kitchen utensils, is annoying as fuck to play against, and now they buffed him for some reason. Like, why, man? I'm exhausted from talking about how much I hate this fucker. Let's move on to the gripes I had with Chance and 2-Time. Starting off with 2-Time first, since I don't exactly have many complaints about them. The only thing I want to talk about is the crouch ability. This shit is genuinely so useless, and I have only ever seen this ability used strategically once, when a player in my lobby somehow hit a backstab from much further away and then ended up dying 20 seconds later. This ability should either be reworked to do something else entirely different, or just straight up removed and replaced with something else, because almost nobody is going to make themselves willingly slower for a temporarily lunge boost that is super situational. As for Chance, the only 2 gripes I have with him are his range and hat fix ability. Yeah, I'm finally talking about it. So this is a ranged survivor. His entire thing is that he can stun the killer from far away, which makes sense since he has a gun. So, tell me why the fuck is there a range limit on it? You are only able to hit the killer from around 90 studs away, which in the grand scheme of things is not a lot at all. It used to be infinite, but they took that away for some reason. If this was for balancing purposes, I generally don't understand why they nerfed the range when you still have to aim with him. And aiming from longer ranges is obviously going to be a lot harder. If you can hit shots from over 90 studs, you should be rewarded for that instead of being held back, because there are other ways you can nerf range without completely just gutting it. I also think having to get 3 charges to be able to hat fix is genuinely really fucking stupid and kind of defeats the whole purpose of the ability, because there's a chance that you just gain all the stacks of weakness back while trying to flip for more HP or better gun luck. Like, come on, I just wanted a single charge, now I got 7 stacks of fucking weakness. I think a good revamp for this ability would be to make it so it just functions as a normal ability with a cooldown instead of needing charges, but the cooldowns instead increase to 90 seconds, so the risk here is that you would need to balance out when you want to get rid of your stacks of weakness and also hope your gun doesn't blow up on you and need repairing. Another revamp I do is for Chance's health reroll. I don't think there's particularly anything wrong with it, but it does just kind of piss me off not seeing the HP in intervals of 10. Like, come on, just give me that 1 extra HP. I just want to be at 100. I also think it would be a lot cooler if there are set values starting from 60 to 30, and whenever you reroll, a roulette wheel appears which spins a ball and lands on a number which dictates your HP. The green number can be interchanged with the max or minimum amount of HP, but this is more an aesthetic change than anything else. Okay, I've got my criticisms with specific specific survivors and killer gameplay out of the way, let me move on to the developers themselves. For some reason, the developers of this game will make some of the stupidest fucking decisions you have ever seen in your life, and it'll make you just wonder how they even got to the point of thinking about going through with that action and then actually doing it. Oh my god! For example, just very recently, the owner of Forsaken himself, Hitoko, ended up firing a mod for the game just because they criticized a different asymmetrical horror game and then immediately went back on the decision once everyone realized how fucking stupid it was and apologized. The way the developers accept skins or don't based on quote-unquote class recognizability is also fucking stupid because of how inconsistent they are with the rule. Also recently, a redesign was done for an already existing Elliot skin called Paper Pal, which while is not greenlit by the time I'm writing this, it had another version that got denied because of this recognizability rule, and literally all they did was change the skin color to be brown. This same class has a skin which looks like this, and you're telling me this skin isn't recognizable just because he's black? And now that I think about it, I don't think there's a single skin with brown skin tones. What did they mean by this? This is the same game that has this green furry fuck as a skin for Jason, and you're talking about recognizability? Hold up, I'm getting a phone call. Hello, this is Kipper Ashley from the Kip Ashley Show. Who am I speaking to? Oh. Yeah, they took the skin out the back and shot him in the head with the 45. The developers also just seem like they are really bad with time management, and I'm genuinely curious as to what goes on behind the scenes because the updates really do feel lackluster with actual new content compared to the amount of time put into it. Using the most recent update as an example, it took them 1 to 2 months just to redesign Jason, add some skins, and fix some bugs, which for how big this game is, really feels like it should not take that long. The Miles skin stones for Taff were quite literally done in less than 24 hours and were announced 9 hours before the game was updated. What the hell are they doing with all that extra time? It feels to me that they're honestly working more on announcing new sneak peeks and putting that attention on already announced content. I kid you not, they almost have as many announced upcoming survivors as the ones already existing in game, and over triple the amount of upcoming killers in the game compared to the already existing ones. Like, can you just please choose to work on one of them and do balancing changes here and there? I do recognize that I am just a player of this game, and the game development is quite complicated and takes time and resources, but it becomes a lot harder to use this card as the days go by when you realize that this game makes an estimated $28.7 million a year, and it's probably increasing as we're just talking right now. What is this money going towards? Are these dudes just smoking and snoring this shit away? It cannot possibly be that hard to just hire 1 or 2 more developers to handle making balancing changes and fixing bugs, which my god, this game has a lot of. And every time they do fix bugs, it just seems like more are made after the previous ones were fixed. Now, despite my criticisms, I should make it abundantly clear once again that I don't hate any of these developers, even if they do get into really petty drama every week and make stupid decisions, and you shouldn't either. However, I am still going to make fun of them and overreact because it's funny. Speaking of which, let me talk about some things that are more funny than anything. Starting off with the ABT. This acronym was coined by my friend Micaiahah. What is ABT, you ask? Well, it stands for anti-backshot technology. I really wish I was joking. If you have played any amount of Roblox in the past 7 or so years, you will have noticed that some people like to do a certain motion to yours or other people's avatars that involves pressing W and S really fast, which is basically just fucking that person's avatar. Now, in the grand scheme of things, this really is a whatever deal. It can be used for toxicity sometimes, but that's really it. However, the developers of Forsaken must have had this happen to them 1 too many times, because in the game, if you do this for more than 3 backshots, you die instantly. And if you continue to do it after you die twice, you just get kicked from the game. This is quite honestly such a stupid fucking mechanic to put developer resources into, because what I'm guessing it's supposed to do is to prevent toxicity, but you literally have a laughing emote in the game that is 10 times more toxic than just going back and forth. By the way, they made this laughing emote and another one both uncancelable, which, yeah, okay, that's kind of funny, but it's also dumb too, man. Like, just typing loser in the chat is infinitely more toxic than backshotting or using these emotes. I feel like this is just the Halo teabagging discussion all over again. Like, come on, man, this is genuinely such a non-issue, and I feel fucking stupid for talking about it in the first place because it shouldn't exist in the first place. And if you're gonna have this feature, at least let me backshot people I have added on Roblox after I backstab them with 2 time. God, this shit is genuinely so frustrating. I wish there was just a single person I could pin all of this blame on and be perfectly in the right for it. I've got an idea! Just Just so we're on the same level here, this part of the video is still the bad, but I have to give it its own section because holy fuck, this is one of the rabbit holes of all time. Now, I mentioned earlier that Haitoko is the owner of Forsaken. Well, alongside Basil, but they aren't as active in the space. However, it wasn't always this way. I think it'd be really stupid of me if I made a video talking about the good and bad of Forsaken if I didn't mention the original creator and owner of Forsaken, Soul Driven Love, also simply known as Soul. Now you're probably asking, how did this Soul person lose ownership of their own game and is responsible for a lot of the issues with the game? Well, I'll tell you right fucking now. Here is a shortened list of not everything, but some of the things this guy has done. Spread around revenge child porn of someone he catfished and sent it around in front of the victim. Encouraged people to drop porn of a minor's character to harass them and admitted himself ill CSEM. Stalked, harassed, and attempted to silence the people who were victims of this treatment. And monetarily funded a neo-Nazi who tried to actually kill someone in real life. What the fuck is wrong with this guy? If you want the full specifics of Soul Driven Love's actions over the years, I highly recommend watching this video as it does a great job of not only exposing these actions in a respectful and detailed manner, but also shutting down the excuses he has made for his behavior. Because of the fact that Soul's actions are surprisingly well documented, I'd like to instead cover both a bit of more background info on him and the absolute nuclear fallout he had with Forsaken. Before Forsaken, he actually used to go under a different name, that being robotic_developer, which is where he would make his first Roblox game, Friday Night Blocks in. And this is the alias he went under where most of the things he was accused of occurred. Genuinely, why the fuck does it always loop back to Friday Night Funkin', dude? And on this account, for some reason, he went to the Roblox developer forum and posted an image of a Nazified drawing of 1X that he paid for instead of paying his developers. He cheated on his ex not just once, but twice when they were together. Played fucking furry Nazi games on Steam with his current girlfriend Ava, in which he had e-sex on their private Twitter accounts that minors had access to, and he had the fucking audacity to go to shitty Roblox drama YouTubers and convince them he was innocent. Hey man, I don't think this aged very well. If you're also wondering as to why there are literally 0 female characters in this game, besides a handful of skins, but that doesn't really count, it is also Soul's own doing. And the reason why there are like 10 different new game-breaking bugs each update is because of how dog shit this dude's code is, to the point that you have developers of the game venting in the actual game's code itself, and also the reason why they are working on recoding the entire game. I know I've been giving them a lot of flack in this video, but fucking Godspeed to you devs. The fact that there are 2 non-binary characters, 2 gender fluid characters, and 1 agender character before a fucking woman is insane. What is this dude on? Also, this motherfucker was planning on adding a survivor in the game that was quite literally just a stupid girlfriend self-insert, which eventually got replaced by Wanwood. But I'm gonna be completely honest with you guys, I think they should have just scrapped this character entirely, because no matter how much you change her, I think there's just gonna be some Hitler particles emanating from this character. After it was found out that Soul was actually the perpetrator instead of the victim he was painting himself to be, he essentially rinsed Forsaken of everything it was worth at the time. There was an Earth Day event which included a game pass that raised around $60,000, which was what it sold for a time, but it was eventually donated to charity, who would use money earned from the game that was supposed to fund development on vacations for him and his girlfriend, who by the way spent $150,000 in 4 months on fucking Pokemon cards. Alongside that, he tried to take the money made from the Chance makeshift plushie for himself instead of the promise of funding game development, but thankfully it went to Haitoko. And after all of this, Soul and Ava sold the game after Haitoko and Basil were planning on taking over the game, which would completely exile him from the team. And he stole around $2 million real-life dollars of funding from the game, including the sale of the game, which by the fucking way, wasn't even for actual money, it was for a fucking share in Grow a Garden. Why the fuck is Grow a Garden involved in everything? Now that I think about it, this is probably the smartest decision Soul has ever made, but that's not saying much. All the while this was going on, Soul was playing fucking Minecraft instead of responding, and Ava was playing Tower of Hell of all things, and she had her joins on.
Your shirt's hard though.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. Just like Soul is for a minor.
Thankfully, after a couple of months, Haitoko and Basil were able to get back full ownership of the game, but I still can't get over the fact that this shit show happened in the first place, and Soul has the audacity to not only continue trying to come back to Roblox, but he is found out almost instantly with his girlfriend. Like, how the fuck is that even possible? I think the funniest thing that has come out of this situation, however, is the fact that the only form of apology he has done is venting on Catalog Avatar Creator, which is literally a fucking game meant for creating outfits without spending Robux. Like, what was the thought process behind this? Hello, it is me, Soul Driven Love. If you want an apology from me, you must find and collect my 8 pieces of text. Either way though, the guy's a fucking loser. Glad he's gone, and the devs are working on cleaning the enormous mess he's made. But it really does suck that it's been hindering a lot of their progress on actual new content updates because of it. As for Soul himself, I bet you he is going to continue to attempt to come back to the platform and continue to somehow get outed for being Soul. And every single time it happens, I will laugh and then move on with my day. Speaking of which, let's go to the section you've probably been waiting for this entire time. What the fuck is that?
This is a Bloxburg News Super Alert!
Yeah, so, Soul's still getting 25% of the fucking game revenue. Okay, so this part is gonna be completely unscripted. This is just gonna be done in one take. No bullshit, just my thoughts about the situation. If you want to just hear me talk about the fandom, skip to this timestamp on the screen. But yeah, let's talk about it. So quite literally, while I was editing this section, it was revealed by a random burner account on Twitter that an alt account of Soul was still being paid. First of all, before you go and immediately defend Hitoko, this dude said in the deleted tweet that he would have said it sooner, but didn't because he knew there'd be backlash, which is fucking reasonable backlash, by the way. And then a bit after the fucking thread that he made, he deactivated his account on Twitter and then reactivated it and then backpedaled, saying that he couldn't have said anything because of an NDA and worded it poorly, which quite frankly, I have no idea how much I can trust of that, because like, why the fuck would you say it in the original tweet? Sure, there might have been an NDA, but at this point, why the fuck should I trust you? Because you clearly said a few months ago that Soul would have no involvement with the game at all, and not only is he still being paid, he is being paid a quarter of the game's revenue, which is fucking insane. I get that when ownership is being transferred, obviously the dude isn't gonna give up his fucking multi-million-dollar IP for nothing. He's obviously gonna want like hella bread, which as much as it sucks to give millions of dollars to an Epstein enthusiast, he's gonna get it if he's gonna like, okay, he's gonna probably get that same amount if you were to sell it, or even more if you were to sell it to some like game studio like Do Big, which would continue giving him money forever. What I can assume is happening here is that the game is still being bought out by Hitoko, but since he doesn't have the money on hand, he's paying Soul with revenue from the game until it's the amount that is fully owed. So like, and then he's gonna stop paying him, at least hopefully. But like, okay, so like, hopefully that's like a fair assumption to make, but like, even then, did you really have to pay this dude 25%? Also, genuinely, who the fuck is this That's Parrot guy that's getting 15% when he quite literally does nothing to my knowledge? I heard that he might be a person from Dubik Studios, but if he is, then why the fuck is he still getting paid? Because I'm pretty sure that fucking Hitoko himself said that he would be gone. Also, it genuinely irks the fuck out of me that the actual programmers of this game are getting paid 2 to 4% when they are the backbone of this game. And I really wonder just how much Hitoko is paying himself though, because if you add up the percentages in the screenshot, 37% is remaining. So how much of that is going towards the other developers and how much of that is going toward himself? And the reason I'm asking this is because during this whole drama, one of the designers for a lot of the upcoming characters came out in a deleted tweet and said that he's been paid a total amount of $5,000 ever since he was hired, which for a game this big, that is fucking pennies. That is like slave wages. He said that he doesn't even earn enough to make a living without getting a second job. Like, you're gonna be giving Soul enough money to just jerk off and buy furry commissions, and That's Parrot to go on another 100 million plus Robux limited spending spree, but not for people to actually work on your game to be able to live. This is genuinely why I'm so fucking pissed about this, because like, obviously Soul's gonna be getting paid either way. I think that was kind of obvious, but the lack of like transparency, the mismanagement, and wages for other developers is just fucking abysmal. And at this point, I don't even know if the NDA thing is real, because I can't trust Hitoko anymore. Like, sure, it is most likely real, but what are the chances he's just saying that shit as to not get more backlash than he already is? Like you saw the deleted tweet. I can't be the only one that's more skeptical about that. To give my final words about this, I'm just not gonna be playing Forsaken until it's confirmed that Soul is off the game's payroll with like video evidence, because I just can't trust the Hitoko anymore. I get his viewpoint of having to keep hush about this if an NDA was actually involved, and to keep the jobs of like over 40, like he said, like over 40 people safe. But the fact that someone came out about not being able to make a living makes me suspect that there are more people in that same situation who cannot afford their bills because Soul is getting such a large cut. That's my take on it. Yeah, if you want to give your own 2 cents, then leave a comment and I might respond to it, but that's kind of all I got. The rest of the background footage is going to be older Forsaken gameplay with Left 4 Dead 2 with Forsaken mods, but either way, let's finally get to the part you've been waiting for. Now, to absolutely nobody's surprise, the Forsaken fandom is kind of a dumpster fire, but let's be honest with ourselves, every single fandom sucks, and it's an unavoidable path that occurs when you surround yourself with a bunch of people who like one certain thing and make it their entire personality. However, that doesn't mean everyone in the fandom is miserable to be around. There are only 2 types of people in the Forsaken fandom that I think are actually somewhat nice to interact with. 1, people who play the game occasionally and aren't obsessed about it but still do talk about the game and actually have some amount of brain function. And 2, artists. Well, some artists. We'll get to that later. Most of the art I see about Forsaken is mostly from Twitter. Despite what the reputation is around Twitter artists, especially Roblox Twitter artists, it's actually pretty nice. You have your usual pieces of individual characters, chip art, skin concepts, all of that fun jazz. In fact, the thumbnail for this video was even done by one of these artists. It's really nice to see a lot of these cute pieces of fan art, and if you happen to get really lucky, you can have your art shown in the lobby of the game itself for millions of people to see, which is awesome. However, there are some arts in this community that are genuinely fucking insane. In a good way. Here is a painting from the Renaissance era painted by the world's famous Micaiahah. Just kidding, this drawing was done by a Forsaken player and it's of Cool Kid and 007 and 7. You're only 16 and painting pieces that would look like they would be on the roof of the Sistine Chapel. Do you want me to kill myself? I've noticed this sort of trend with not just Forsaken but Roblox fandoms in general, that there's at least one person in this sphere that draws like their Da Vinci reincarnated into a gay 14-year-old, and like, what the hell? Sure. Good on you normal players and artists for being the reason why this fandom has not eaten itself into non-existence. Heavy emphasis on the artists because holy shit, some of these pieces are genuinely beautiful and deserve to be recognized. I'm glad we're finally able to be positive for once in this video. It really is a nice breath of fresh air compared to what we've been talking about before, and I hope the streak continues. It isn't going to, isn't it? Forsaken fandom. Where do I even begin to start? Well, actually, you already started with the good side. Shut your fucking mouth! Since I'm already on the topic of artists, I might as well talk about the other side of Forsaken artists. Some artists will quite literally take any character from the game, give them tits and call it a day. And with some of the female skins, they'll exaggerate their anatomy to the point that they look like they just got bullied. For example, this is Yunoya, and you're probably thinking to yourself, hey, this doesn't look like a Forsaken character or skin. Who is this? And well, you would be correct. Sort of. Yunoya is from a different Roblox game, simply called Dream Game, and that game is also where Mafioso comes from, meaning Mafioso is a collab skin. Yunoya was also a collab skin for Elliot, but she was removed because of the fact that so many players and artists sexualized her to the point that it made the developers of Dream Game so uncomfortable, they want Yunoya to have nothing to do with Forsaken. This case of the fandom sexualizing a character definitely had the most severe consequences, and you bet your ass it wouldn't be the last. Like, I'm talking about shit like this. Why the fuck are you playing Roblox with a mod that gives you a huge rack and ass? Are you constantly playing this game with one hand? I didn't even know you could mod Roblox and you use it for shit like this. Don't get me wrong, I'm not against the idea of gender bending characters, and I think it is actually pretty cool when it's done right, but this is not doing it right. Speaking of people ruining characters for others, let's talk about pro shippers. If you are actually someone who likes to get fresh air and interact with other human beings in person, you probably have no idea what a pro shipper is. So let me explain. Shipping is when someone gets two fictional, or sometimes real, people and imagine they are in a relationship. Pro shippers take this step further and completely ruin it, as they like to ship characters that would create problematic situations such as incest, pedophilia, rape, or abuse, all around gross things of that nature. Pro shippers are sadly in basically every single fandom. However, there are especially a lot in Forsaken, to the point that they have their own name for the sub-community known as Prosaken. I wish I was joking. When I first heard of this community, I thought it was just a bunch of people who are good at the game, and I wish it was just that. Now, before I go into this next section, I have to give some context about some of the lore of Forsaken, which you are hearing me correctly. This game does actually have lore with its characters. The two characters' lore I'll be talking about is 007 and 7 and Cool Kid. As I mentioned all the way back, Cool Kid is the alternate account of 007 and 7 in real life. However, in Forsaken, the lore for these characters is that 007 and 7 is actually the adoptive father of Cool Kid, which, knowing the real life context, is actually pretty sweet. 007 and 7 himself even found this amusing, if I recall correctly, as it was confirmed by his cousin 007E7 that he did play the game. That sounds pretty cool. Hopefully nothing bad happens. Did I mention that Cool Kid is canonically 10 years old in Forsaken? Oh no! As soon as pro shippers heard this detail of 007N7 and Cool Kid having a father-son relationship and Cool Kid being 8 years old, they immediately got to work drawing incest porn of these two, which then immediately got the real 007 to leave the platform again. And even more recently, a fan voice actor for 007N7 got outed for being a groomer alongside other pro shippers, doxed 007N7 and his family for literally no fucking reason. What was the point of that? He literally didn't do anything. What the fuck? Forsaken Loki kind of ruined this guy's life, and I wouldn't blame him if he wanted every trace of him removed from the game. Now for this next section, I need to give a bit more context from Forsaken's lore, specifically from the character Two Time, which I am 99% sure is based off of that one Jack Stauber song, even though Soul denied it. In the game's universe, Two Time is a believer in a fictional cult simply called the Spawn Cult, which is represented by the Spawn symbol that was heavily used in Roblox's early years and even still to this day. The devoted followers of this fictional cult believe in a fictional god of the same name called the Spawn, and also believe that you could be given a second life through sacrifice. The fictional cult psychologically manipulated Two Time into stabbing their former partner, Azure, to death, and while they showed remorse at first, they would continue to devote their entire life to this fictional cult. It is a cautionary tale of choosing to blindly believe in certain views pushed on you. Now, would you believe me if I said there was a real-life cult that stemmed from this fucking Roblox game? Spawnism is a real cult that is essentially one-for-one of Forsaken's fictional cult, which is a really big problem once you realize there are actually people who believe in its legitimacy. While it started around a couple months before, this started to become a problem around August of this year, with the predators taking advantage of this fictional cult's ideas and using it on impressionable minors in poor mental states, convincing them to do things such as expose themselves on camera for these predators and carve the Roblox spawn symbol into their arms and legs. Which I wish I was joking about that, but there were actually kids posting pictures of their spawn symbol self-harm onto Twitter, like holy shit. There's also been alleged suicides, but there isn't actually any evidence that these actually occurred, at least not that I've seen, but it is still genuinely really scary thinking about the thought of that possibility. And it got to the point that Haitoko himself had to come out and basically say that this shit is not real. This is also probably one of the major reasons as to why the official Forsaken Discord server became read only a month or two ago, as it's only used to give updates on development progress and announce when new content is releasing, to prevent bad actors like these Spawnism leaders from preying on children. As of now, the entire Spawnism shit has died down pretty heavily, but I wouldn't be surprised if there's still some activity going on in the shadows, which is really worrying, but I really do hope the kids involved in this cult get some sort of mental help. You know, I never really thought there would be a self-harm suicide cult that would come from a fucking Roblox game, but there's a first time for everything, I guess. Well, those two topics were kind of Debbie Downers. Let's move on to people in the fandom who still annoy me, but it's in more of a funny way. Another thing that I've come to realize is that the majority of people who play this game and give their opinions about it on Twitter have absolutely no idea what the fuck they are talking about, and it feels like this is their first time ever playing a video game. Now that might be my fault for expecting any sort of intelligence coming from Roblox players on Twitter, but how is it that everyone who plays this game complains about things that don't need to be reworked at all and doesn't complain about shit that actually needs to be reworked? The people you come across who have way too much playtime in this game either have way too many killer wins or none at all, which really says a lot about both them and how it kind of sucks to play killer. Like, you're telling me I'm either gonna play against someone who has 14 killer wins in 18 days of playtime or 5,400 wins and 60 fucking days of playtime? I am begging you, please play a different game. Holy shit. I also think it's really funny how people in game will complain about when you are playing the game like it's supposed to be played. Like, what? You're killer and killing me? What? The most complaining I see from survivors is a supposed quote-unquote targeting, which is literally just doing damage on someone and then ignoring everyone else and only going after that person. Which, like, if you're smart, you're gonna continue to go after the person who has less health than everyone else. It's like complaining that someone isn't fucking stupid and actually good at the game. Like, I'm sorry I didn't fall for your stupid tripwire that spans across the entire map and I destroyed it instead of walking into it. I guess I'll just walk through it next time. This type of complaint can be summed up with this single screenshot. I feel as if this game was just destined to have a horrendous fandom, and that really isn't the developer's fault at all. So I guess you might as well just play the cards you're dealt with and sell another million chance plushies. So kids, what did we learn today? Forsaken is a very fun game that while it does have its problems, I can recognize that the developers are trying to put out a quality product. Do I think that they could be doing a lot more and running their business a lot better? Abso-fucking-lutely. But we've already got a taste of how it could be a lot worse, so I would be grateful for what we got now. Also, besides the artist, the fandom is fucking annoying. Before I end off this video, I would like to end off with two different notes. One, most of the money I got in this game was actually given to me by a mod that my little brother is friends with before they got told to stop doing that, and I have level 100 with some characters that I barely touched. If this video gets a stupid amount of likes, like 100k or some shit, I'll do a video where I get level 100 on every single character, but that's not gonna happen. And two, I will retract all the criticism I gave this game if the devs give me my own chance skin. Whoa, you actually made it to the end of the video. Micaiah, is there something you'd like to say? Say something.
No.